I'm really pained bringing you this story today. It's all over the news. I have to detail what exactly happened here. Remember, BluSmart has now stopped operations in Delhi, NCR and Bengaluru regions. Sebi has found some large-scale financial fraud. BluSmart, its name on clean energy and cleaner service. India's first all-electric cab fleet that promised zero emissions and zero excuses. Behind the smooth ride, though, and that 5-star rating it boasted of, Sebi says was a financial fraud that was running into nearly 262 crores. Government loans that were meant to drive India's EV revolution were allegedly funneled into luxury apartments, golf gear, foreign trips, personal credit card payments. In fact, this is so personal to me because I've used BluSmart for years. In fact, I often use it even now. And I've found myself raving about it. The best service, I could say. Drivers are so professional. The cars are so clean. They're on time, right? They have no excuses. The experience felt very reliable and also safe. No last-minute changes. We know the car was sanitized. There was no fuel smell, no noisy engines, no dirty back seats. Honestly, it was miles ahead of many other cab services, cab aggregators that provided the same service. I could surely say BluSmart was one of the finest. I did recommend it myself to many of my friends. The best part was, unlike many other aggregators, if you see, all BluSmart cars look alike. So there's no surprises, a rundown car turning up to pick you up. Which is why this probe certainly hits harder. What Sebi found here is shocking. Only 4,704 EVs were purchased, which is short of 6,400 that they claimed to buy. So where did all that money go that was that was due to buy that many more cars? That did not happen. So clearly money was diverted. Sebi's signals were, of course, alert. Then they tried to probe and found a deserted plant in Pune, fake pre-orders, forged loan records and inflated delivery numbers. Shockingly, 43 crores were spent on a Camellias flat in Gurgaon. 26 lakhs spent on a golf set. 11 crores routed to a family member, multiple family members. In fact, 2.9 crores transferred to one particular family member, Mugdha Kaur Jaggi, who is the wife of Anmol Jaggi and is an IAS officer. 50 lakhs of that money was invested in Ashneer Grover's third unicorn, plus several foreign trips, Titan watches, credit card bills, all allegedly paid for through EV-linked loans. Now, rupees 424 crores flowed from Gensol to a company called Velre. This is what the investigative report has found. Nearly 382 crores was routed after that. Sebi calls this a calculated diversion of funds. Gensol stock has collapsed by 48%. It's a public listed company. In a month's time, it's nosedived. BluSmart is now exploring a partnership with Uber to stay afloat. This surely wasn't a messy startup error for sure. This was an engineered breach of trust with public money, investor faith, and the credibility of India's EV transition on the line. I believe this company was building the future. In fact, what I did certainly believe was this company had the future in mind. It was living the future. What I see and saw through BluSmart was the future has arrived. Now it's caught in this scandal that could cost everything, especially nearly 1,500 odd staff members, employees of BluSmart. What happens to them? Will they get a bailout? Unlike other cab aggregators who own, many drivers own the cars and are tied up to Uber, Ola, etc. But BluSmart hired drivers and had their own cars. So what happens to many of those drivers? In fact, all of them. We're hoping this deal with Uber goes through because this is about their bread and butter and it's a large population we're talking about, over 1,200 odd drivers, staff members. Let me take our guest in to give us a little more perspective on the story. Vinkesh Gulati, Vice President, Automotive Skills Development Council and former President, FADA. Thanks very much as an automobile expert. I'm trusting you to give us a sense of how this fraud has panned out. Mahendra Swaroop, former Chairman, Startup Association of India and Managing Partner, Ankurit Capital. Sir, if I could ask our automobile expert here, Vinkesh, we know that EV is something that India has been ambitious about. How could such large-scale fund diversion, though, go unnoticed? In fact, lenders' money has come in through the government. That money has to be used for EV purchases. This money was diverted elsewhere, and it was so easily moved out to family members' accounts, buying apartments, buying luxury holidays, but, a 25 lakh worth golf kit. This was absolute luxury, all with the money that was taken through government loans and public funds.
See, actually, one thing you should agree that BluSmart came with a beautiful idea.
Yeah.
For the past 3-4 minutes, you have been praises of how
Absolutely.
BluSmart
I loved the
and
service.
and frankly, as per I know, because we have skilled their drivers, so there are some 150 women drivers which we have skilled for them. The only Delhi fleet owner who is using women as drivers. So overall, it was a great concept. It is. I'm not still writing it off. It is still a great concept, and on the ride-hailing cab services, they are still the best. But obviously, there is a lot of systems where the audits are done, internal audits, external audits, then Sebi is involved, then ROC is involved. There are a lot of such audits which happen time to different companies wherever. And practically these big investors who have invested in BluSmart or Gensol or even WRT, they regularly get the data and do the audits. I don't know how everybody or every institution involved in the funding of BluSmart or these two companies could go wrong in one way. It's really tough to understand. And if this was happening for past an year or so, what the Sebi reports, it's a difficult thing to understand, because as per report, every quarter they have to send the reports to media, to social, to analysts, to their share providers, even their investors. Somewhere I think they have gone wrong, had a very good project, but intentions went wrong with maybe some other proposal or the project they were doing.
They started with the right intentions. A
Them.
lot of money came, then they got greedy, then money was diverted to buy their fancy luxury items and thought they'll get away with it. But then, this clearly shows that they're not seasoned. They may have had a great idea, but money came in and their mind wandered. That's what it appears to me. Like I did say, and you said, it is a great product. BluSmart has the best service, so they may have had great intentions. But I would not believe that this wasn't calculated. Diverting funds to buy their own luxury is not something that can happen by mistake, right? It was calculated efforts, and we hear there was a lot of money that moved from Gensol to that Velray company, and Velray eventually using Gensol's money to buy Gensol stocks. So they were doing insider trading, which is again illegal. So I'm saying in every layer of this probe here, it shows intent which is not right. Mahindra Swaroop, would you agree?
I don't know if you remember, in between there was a discussion about all the vehicles which have been leased by Gensol to BluSmart shifting to Velray company of Bangalore, where the vehicle ownership was being shifted, and they will now lease to BluSmart, which is again an insider thing, both companies owned by similar kind of people. It's also, you're right, there's been some calculated effort and some thinking which went wrong, because they should have planned this in a long way. Nobody wants to get caught if such calculated efforts are done. So somewhere it got caught in between, where they were expecting some.
Which is I'm shocked. How did they think they'd get away? Sir, if you could give us a sense on, Mr. Mahindra, give us a sense on how this scam was pulled off. Does this really expose India's startup funding ecosystem? Is this how easy it is to game the system and hope you can get away? Thankfully, they're being exposed now. But point being, what happens within the startup funding system? Is it so easy to show bankruptcy? Oh, I don't have money anymore, claim bankruptcy, get out easy?
I think Venkesh has raised a relevant point, in the sense that how could it escape the eyes of the auditors, the investors who are sitting on the board, and especially the independent directors who are sitting on the board? I think Sebi comes into action only when it's a listed company, and Gensol happen to be a listed company. So if when you talk about the startup, in a way, is it a malice in the startup ecosystem? I think it is, right? And I think I'm being very blunt and upfront that most of the startups are privately listed. They're not listed, they're privately held companies with the promoters having significant stakes and then the investors. So I think investors also have a fiduciary duty towards their own investors that the money which has been invested is used for the purposes for what it was lent for or invested for. I think in the case of BluSmart, I think it was a brilliant idea. They started off as fleet owners and then they transitioned to compete with Uber and have their own app, right? And now when you are competing with a platform like Uber or an Ola, which has no capital expenditure, has no people on their rolls, and is simply an aggregator of services, then it's difficult to really be able to compete. I think uh, BluSmart was burning cash and they were looking for funding to fill the gap of their burn, but they couldn't raise that $50 million for which they were in the market to raise. And that probably must have triggered the flow of funds from one entity to the other. And when the
Look,
flows
let me also
happen,
remind you, sir, that Anmol and Puneet Jaggi, both of them have moved nearly 25 crores and 11 crores separately for their personal use. None of that was used for business.
correct.
They've
Yes, I
diverted
think
it for personal use. This I'm saying in addition to all the list, all the other purchases that I've mentioned.
yeah, that's how it all starts. This is all how this all starts. The intention is to probably save their pet project, which is BluSmart. And when they find it that it's so easy to move around in the Indian system, then there are a few crores here and there being used for their personal purposes. They believe that they'll not get discovered. Right? Sebi is an extremely good regulator, and we are fortunate to have one regulator like Sebi, which actually discovered this, what was happening in a listed company. But we don't have a regulator for a privately held startup ecosystem, right? And lots and tons of money from the government are flowing into startups. You know that there's a fund of funds of 10,000 crores, and another 10,000 crores has been put into the budget now this year, which Sidbi will be managing and giving it to the VC funds, who will then go ahead and invest in these kind of early stage emerging technology startups. But without a regulator, this could happen with anyone. I think founders are young, are in a rush, are in a hurry, right? And they don't have what we call mature board of directors. I think one of the things which I think SEBI should regulate is that if it's an AIF fund which has invested in any of these startups, they should be very well regulated. Not only the AIF fund should be regulated, but even the companies in which and the startups which they are investing need to be regulated in some fashion or the other, in terms of that the AIF or the investment managers, as they call it, should be held responsible for anything which can happen, which happened with BluSmart. I think it's not only public money which is at stake, it's also a lot of private money which is at stake. There are a lot of angel investors who have invested with BluSmart when it started off, right? So all of those people will have such a shock. They would have to write off their investments, and then the whole ecosystem gets impacted.
But I'll tell you
shy
why
away.
this is very disappointing, sir. Vinkesh, maybe you can add why this is very disappointing is because the Indian government heavily supported EV innovation and pushed the project. They found support. The founders found support in the government. How many of us can really boast of having connections in the government, having the government back you, push your EV project, because there's a vision. India has a vision. We want to turn into clean green energy, and here you have a few people there doing it, claiming to do great things in EV, and then faking it. They've in fact faked. Gensol's buzz was nearly 30,000 EVs have already been pre-sold, basically claiming that we are making it for many companies. Some MOUs were signed, but that's it. Nothing happened. Their actual production plant was defunct. None of it worked. The electricity bills at that factory was apparently negligible. There was hardly anybody in that factory. So it was all fake. In my view, this is lying, gaming the system, inherently cheating every layer of the system here. And I don't see why this is not calculated.
So even sir has agreed and even I have agreed. What we are saying is 100% right. But obviously, like he said, there are a lot of auditing bodies and regulatory bodies. But the position, like you said, the electric vehicle is the buzzword today. If you are involved in an EV, you are easily invited to the panels or even government meetings and all that. And every minister or department wants to align themselves with electric vehicle people if involved in battery or, and no doubt BluSmart was really an ideal EV platform where everybody would want to back on and everybody would want to invest in. So they got everything very easily, I feel, on the on a plate of easy things. So that is how somewhere going down the line they started well and then they got the intentions bad. I don't think so. They calculated like this from the first day when they launched Gensol or BluSmart. But going further, the easy funds they got because of the EV platform and the EV hype and the government support because of the EV hype. They thought this is very easy and there are no set of daily controls and you should agree these are all startups. They are not very legacy owned players where they normally work on their own funds more than the borrowing. Startups today work
No, but
purely on debts and
just a quick
investments
look
and
at
all.
the design. If I'm sorry to interrupt, just a quick look at the design, Mr. Mahendra. We are looking at Gensol that was manufacturing these EV vehicles owned by the Jaggi brothers. That was leasing the same EV vehicles to the BluSmart company, again owned by the Jaggi brothers. So these are two companies. One is attempting to make one and lease to the other company, but owned by the same family. So the design itself looked suspicious right from the start. How did agencies fail to notice that? How can something like this be clamped down, right? Investors' money be protected, taxpayers' money be protected.
I think you're absolutely right. From the beginning, I think there was a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
You can have a manufacturing unit and lease it out to your another company, and then same. I think it's not only a failure or the intention. I think there is no doubt that they got greedy down the road, and intentions are not what they should be of a good, mature, forward-looking founder. I think at the same time, besides the Jaggi brothers, I think that there are other three stakeholders who should also be held responsible by Sebi. The auditors themselves. The auditors, how can they skip such a glaring things which are coming to light? As you rightly said, there was nothing in the factory. The electricity bills were negligible, right? Instead of 6,000 odd vehicles to be bought, only 4,000 were bought. How about the auditor signing such kind of fake uh, audit reports? And then, secondly, what were the board of directors doing? What were the independent directors doing? Then, what's the point of SEBI
The
regulating
CFO
that?
resigned recently. Obviously, he did not want to get into legal trouble, I presume. He resigned. And there were ICRA and those reports, their ratings were showing that they were defaulting on loans. So it became alarmingly clear. And in the last 1 year, this scam has been exposed. It hasn't happened overnight, but it's taken about a year because there's big money involved. But as a final question, as I'm short on time, either one of you would want to answer, how do we protect the employees? Nearly 1,200, 300 drivers who are associated with BluSmart, unlike other cab aggregators where they own their cabs and tie up with the aggregator. Here, BluSmart EVs are owned by the Jaggi brothers. So they're now left without a job altogether.
I think all these vehicles would be, I think, hypothecated to a bank. That's what I suppose. I think one of the ways it could be done is that these vehicles are transferred to the drivers. They are given loans and then they buy these, and they become like any other Uber or a Ola driver owning the vehicle. Right? That is one way of looking at it, and then they get attached to Ola and Uber, and so they can save their livelihood, and also the cars don't go into a dump yard because they're seized by either any of the regulators or the banks. Right? So I think immediately, I think someone has to be innovative enough to find a way that these 1,500 odd drivers are not let to be on their own and the vehicles go and rust. I think that will be the worst thing which could happen to such a novel cause, which the Jaggi brothers probably started off with. So I would strongly urge the government or anyone who comes, even Nami Yatri, which is the platform for aggregators now on ONDC, which is supported by the government, they can take it over. I think any of these three aggregators should actually be encouraged to take these fleet over along with the drivers. That's
So
one
we
way. And I think it's an
here
excellent service, as you started off by saying in
absolutely.
your program. It's an excellent service. It'll be so sad that such
I'm the most disappointed. I was very passionate
right.
about having this story air out and with expert opinions here. We're really hoping that Uber absorbs BluSmart as claimed, and that happens at the earliest because you see many of them and their jobs will now be in limbo. A
And I think
final word.
ownership of the cars have to move on to the drivers. I think let's be fair
Wow,
about it.
that would be a jackpot.
Yes. The thing is, yeah, but they would end up paying in EMIs to the bank, which bails
If
it
they can
out,
afford
right?
it, yeah. All right.
Yeah, right.
Final word, Venkesh. The Jaggi brothers, what kind of legal implications could they face? I mean, this is, at the end of it, a case that they can tie in courts for years to come. We've seen the best of the best fraudsters sitting abroad.
Yeah, I
Where are the
feel,
Jaggi brothers?
this will not take a lot because there are investors' money also and there are private investors also. The loans and all that all put together. There had been days when things got solved in years, but as of today, with the government legal system and the judiciary also very heavy on startups and lenders, loan people taking loan and not returning. Uh, no doubt it will take at least 2-3 years to solve. I'm hoping it should go it before, but this will be solved faster because of involvement of all the investors, which are private, Sebi and everything. And I hope it does solve it faster. So like sir said, if the cars are kept for even for 6 months, these are electric vehicles, this will rust and will be of zero value. If they are today at 1 rupees, it will become zero. No use to the investors or the banks or even to the drivers if they get after 6 months. These are all electric vehicle with battery which need regular care and charging to use it. And this is a great service which, if it goes out of India,
Yeah,
will be
yeah.
or shut
An
down will be a
absolute
major loss
disappointment that
from
would
the
be.
EV side and the India side also.
Yeah, and this is really going to damage the credibility of India's EV mission. And that's what's the most tragic part, I suppose. But let's hope they're arrested and they face legal charges if proven to be true. These allegations are proven to be true, then they've got to be reprimanded. Thanks very much, the two of you, for taking your time out.